into my first, my three movies that should not remake.
Should not remake.
Should not remake. Do not remake these movies, even though they're probably going to anyway. This first one, I know they're going to they're already in the process of remaking, but I don't think they should do it. And my first one is going to be Blade. I do not think that they should remake Blade. The main reason is well, for one, I don't think it's a good fit for the MCU. They're trying to introduce Blade into the MCU. I don't think it's a good fit. And I think vampires existing within the MCU is going to open up a whole different can of worms as to why didn't anyone know about these things happening at all? It's just like, it kind of, it lends itself to its own world and its own little universe building. Just do it there and leave it separate from everything else.
It creates too many conflicts and questions because, again,
yes.
If these people are heroes, why are they letting vampires run around good people?
Exactly. Yeah, why did no one know about vampires roaming around or whatever, infiltrating the businesses and stuff like that, if that's what they've been doing? But it's like...
Right.
So like I said,
where's Captain America and all this?
Exactly. So, also, rated R. Rated R is the only way that this movie can really kind of work, because just they tried PG-13. That was with the third Blade movie. And while that had other problems, but that kind of lent to that being a problem, is it being PG-13. It's like you can't really display the style and like the viciousness of what goes on in the vampire world or whatever. So I'm like, it's one of those things like, you probably can't Disney probably would never go there. I'm just saying, like, they would never go there. And if I'm being honest, I feel like the first movie was kind of that lightning in a bottle type thing, where it was just like, man, you managed to capture some dark and grittiness with still having a little bit of like, that silly nature to it in a certain scenes and stuff where you could still kind of have fun. So it was kind of like that lightning, where it just worked. Wesley Snipes was great in the role. He's iconic in the role. Like, if you think about Blade, you think about Wesley Snipes. So it's kind of like... it would be hard to replace him. And I know Mahershala Ali is a good actor. I know he's a good actor, but
he's sensational, yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good actor, but it's just... I would just leave it... I would leave this alone. I feel like this is one of those movies where it's just like, I just don't touch it. Just don't touch it. Leave it as its own little thing in its own little universe. And, yes, it started to go downhill, especially with the third movie. It really went downhill, but, just... Sometimes you just gotta let stuff go. Let's let it ride.
Well, hey, now the third movie did have Ryan Reynolds in it.
Yeah,
kind of trying out his Deadpool kind of thing there.
Exactly.
He's kind of auditioning for Deadpool to be
yeah,
and be like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, because the real Hannibal King is nothing like that in the comics. The Hannibal King is a real serious character. So so that was one of those things. So. My second, I'm cheating a little bit here with this one. I'm cheating a little bit here.
No, you're not. You're not.
And that would be the Alien versus Predator universe. And I say universe because they've kind of canonized these things as existing in the same universe. I'm not going to say like the first Alien movie was lightning in a bottle, but it was just really good. Very well written. Even with the second movie, Aliens, which is very different in tone, they've kind of gone over to like the horror / action type genre with that one. And we've talked about this before, William, is that Ripley was kind of like would be the equivalent like how you have the everyman, she's the every woman, and she was thrust into a role that she is able to use her abilities and her maternal personality to get through, but it's just like you said, like there was no one else that could do this at the time. And it's almost like I compare that almost to John McClane, where it's just like John McClane is not like the super cop or anything. It was just like he's the guy that was just there. There's nobody else to do this. so he has to do it. And that's the same with Ripley. No one
Yeah.
else is there to able to do it, so it's got to be her, or everyone dies.
Yeah.
So,
And she was competent, kind of like John McClane. He's a cop, not out of his element, not actually, equipped to deal with this. And with Ripley, she was seasoned. She understood what was going on, and knew the aliens in the general sense of knew what they were capable of, and knew kind of the unexpected. But like I said, she was the sort of the every man, every woman that we put ourselves in. It's like, holy cow. But she was good enough and competent enough in things that, as she could operate a load lifter. She could, she was smart. She took charge when she needed to. She asked tough questions. She didn't back down. But she was also, willing to go along with things that made sense. And go like, let's do this, do that. She goes, oh, let's do it. Good idea. Let's do this. And then when, kind of the dunderheads took over, she's like, oh no, we're gonna do this.
Yes.
Or like I said, at the end, there was nobody else to go rescue Newt. She had to do it. She knew how to operate weapons. She knew where Newt was, basically. She knew what to expect. Of course, then she runs across the Queen, which is like, oh, that was different. It's like, okay, maybe she's still, but she still kind of, ran across something major like that, but still was able to kind of, she was able to kind of adapt to it, right? So she was able to adapt to it and overcome it, just because, well, what else could you do, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's really no other way around that. So it's kind of like,
Exactly.
That's why I think, Alien or Ripley is one of those, iconic movie hero role models that everybody looks up to and goes like, damn.
Yes.
It's kind of like, I like these movies in a sense that it falls on that what would you do if category, in my opinion, right? It's kind of like the you're lost at sea, or it's a post-apocalyptic world, you're by yourself, there's a zombie apocalypse, no one else is around. It's kind of like, what would you do if, kind of like that choose your own adventure, what would you do? And exactly. That's one thing I love about her character in that sense. It's like, she didn't have to go on the mission.
Exactly.
She could have stayed home, but she chose to go on the mission to provide closure to herself, and maybe even to get a sense of, why she was lost for so long, and maybe some sort of purpose to her life, and to, her loss of, if you watch the extended version,
her
loss
daughter.
Of her daughter. Yeah, because she was supposed to come back and didn't make it back for 57 years or something.
Yeah.
And so maybe that would give her some sort of closure, both in terms of the people she worked with, also now the colonists who are, not, contacting, I guess, the whole thing. She's like, oh, there's families there. Oh, well, I got to do something now.
Right.
I can't just sit back and not do anything.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So that is totally, awesome. And that's just, gosh, that's just good writing, good acting. It's good storytelling all around.
Exactly.
You name it.
Exactly.
So, Disney, do you hear it?
I wish they would listen. I wish they would. I wish they would. It's just like, people would say like, oh, why do you keep bringing up Ripley as this, every time like this argument comes up, I'm like, because Ripley is probably the best example. She is literally the best example. There's a reason why everyone freaking loves Ripley. There's a reason why she kept coming back in the franchise, to her detriment. But there was a reason why they kept bringing back Sigourney. Everyone freaking loves Ripley. In the video games, like they would reference Ripley. Like, everyone loves her. So, but also, being in the same universe, Predator. Now, Predator does have its downfall. Obviously, same thing with Aliens, does have its downfall. Predator, I don't ever think it was a perfect film, but it was one of those movies that was deceptively smart. And
yes, exactly.
A lot of people don't get that. They don't get it. It's like, it's a deceptively smart movie where it's just like, you have this group of ragtag individuals. They are your quintessential action movie stars, big, beefy, talking all kinds of smack and all this kinds of stuff. Right, whereas they would be the ones that are always on top of their game. And it's like, okay, now let's throw something in there and just throw like the whole thing for a loop. Now we have this monster that is better than all of them combined, hunting them down. down just
The
for
training doesn't matter. The weapons don't matter. None of that
exactly,
matters.
exactly, and that was
None of that matters. Now,
that.
they are really back to that. They're back to that whole everyman scenario. It's like I'm
Mm-hmm.
really trained at this. I'm really good at that. So you see them blow up and take out
Mm-hmm.
piddly nobodies, and all of a sudden now you're across like okay, they're way out of the league here. It's kind of
Yes.
like Ripley running across the alien queen. She's like, okay, I can take care of the alien creatures, but I
Mm-hmm.
walk into a room full of eggs and a giant queen.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this.
Exactly.
Like, oh, okay, you really literally stepped
Ex-
right into it, didn't you?
And they had to
Yeah.
like use every advantage that they had, because just
Right.
going in head on obviously didn't work. Like they showed that several occasions where they just try to do what they do best, and it doesn't work. They got to figure out something else.
Mhm.
Arnold was at his wits. He was at his wits end. Like he just like he.
Well, and remember from Predator, it
Mhm.
was an accident when he fell into the mud.
Right.
It was cool, and again, he's deceptively
Exactly.
smart. And I think Critical Drinker did a review of this, saying how kind of what you're saying it was deceptively a smart, well written movie that was
Hmm.
disguised as sort of a throwaway action yarn,
Exactly.
popcorn type movie with
Hmm.
silly, one liners and quips,
Hmm.
or your typical Arnold, action movie.
Hmm.
But it was better than that, And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, okay. And
Hmm.
I think that's why it's kind of universally loved, and I think it holds up really well because
Yeah.
there's nothing in there that really dates it, I guess, really. I mean,
No, not really. Not really. I mean, being perfectly honest, not really. There's not much
because
that.
yeah, yeah,
So maybe some technology, but even still, it's like you're out in you're out in
yeah, you're
the
out in the jungle. It's like, well,
jungle.
they might
Yeah.
use, yeah, this isn't like, because I mean, we know it's set from the 70s to the 2000s, even though back then it was in the 80s, so we know it
Hmm.
was then, but it still could be set today exactly the same. There's really
Yes.
nothing different they could have changed with, a mixed group of mercenary soldiers
Hmm.
or elite special forces or whatever, helicoptering in, parachuting in, whatever.
Hmm.
Boom, go rescue these people. It could
Exactly.
happen right now,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's great. I mean,
Yeah,
love it.
exactly. And even like it had some more faults than its predecessor. Predator 2 was pretty decent. It was pretty decent. I didn't like that certain things, like they made the Predator kind of overpowered in certain cases where he was just suddenly bulletproof out of nowhere. It was just like
Right? Yeah.
I kind of wish you didn't do that or whatever. But even like just changing the environment, it was like actually like it was pretty decent. Like I said, it kind of had its downfall or whatever, but the thing is, like, this shouldn't be remade just for the sole purpose of like what can you do, what can you really do, because as timeless as the first movie is, like I said, don't think it's perfect, but it's, like I said, deceptively smart. But I don't think that they could do it, because like they would just be redoing things, making references to things with less effort, and that can't be more obvious by any of the sequels that come out now.
Right.
Any of the sequels that have come out, it's just like, oh, hey, remember this?
Remember this?
Remember that? It's just like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that from a better movie. I could be watching that better movie right now instead
Exactly.
of
Or watch
doing.
the original, kind of like with the Aladdin thing. It's like, well, I just watch the original, or Beauty and the Beast or Milan animated. It's
Yeah.
like, no, watch that one. Why? It was better.
Exactly. So it's like they've already shown that like they're not really going to put in the effort to actually do something. And if anything, I would probably accept more of a sequel than I would accept a reboot or a remake or whatever. I would accept that more. But like I said, you see, like just from their sequels alone, it's just like they make these offhand references, and it's just like you have the reference, but you don't have the substance. You don't understand what made this work in the first place.
Well,
So.
but see, that's kind of the can of worms you get if you try to do a continuation, because as
Mm,
we've seen with the Star Wars movies,
yeah.
Disney,
Yeah.
is that they had all this wonderfully written, fleshed out, characters and universe and the whole nine
Hmm.
yards. I go, nah, none of that's from our universe. Throw it all away. And
Right,
then they could
right.
create this own nonsense that why? Why would you? I don't. why are you reinventing the wheel that's been invented like to fairly darn good perfection? Why not add something that was maybe lacking or missing, or that you feel would work, I guess, without changing the thing? It's kind of like people's like, well, so and so in this movie said, the kid with the broom shows anybody can have the force. We already knew that.
Yeah.
We already knew that.
Yeah.
Get it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, well, that's some special revelation that wasn't already established.
I know. I mean, that's established in the first movie. It's
yeah.
Like, your father was a Jedi Knight like myself. It's like, oh, cool. So there's only 2 Jedi Knights? No, it was an order. We knew that. Okay, go.
Yeah.
And if you read the books, it told you that, as well. Even the first, books of the kind of based off the. Back then, they wrote probably I think the books might have written from the film or vice versa. I don't know, because those kind of back in the day, they would have put a book out with, it's like, I remember reading Star Wars, the book, after the movie came out, because the book wasn't out yet, if I remember correctly. The Empire Strikes Back book came out like right before the movie. So they were kind of close there. And it's funny because a lot of people remember Star Wars differently, probably because you read the book. And there were scenes in the book and stories in the book that didn't make it to the movie. But it would have been like, if you see some of the behind the scenes or cut scenes, you saw, Luke talking to Biggs, at Tashi Station and things like that. But that was in the book, and so maybe that's why people remember it that way. So why get rid of all that when it's already there and you already understand this? Why not just use that? So that's the double-edged sword there. It's like you open up another can of worms because they want to try to create something. Oh, well, let's do this thing. And it's like, why? Well, just because. It's like, but does that add anything? It doesn't. It actually takes away. And so that people are thinking, well, I'm going to take away that because that's clever, in air quotes, I guess. But it's not. It's kind of like lazy writing. I mean,
yes.
It's just like, well, this will be controversial and now we'll be in the media and they'll be, like saying things about our films for a while and it'll be trending or something. But that's not anything.
Exactly.
I mean, trending isn't anything. It's fluff. I mean, it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's nothing.
All right. So speaking of controversial, actually, before I go into that, controversial, I'm going to go into some honorable mentions. Some that I was pretty obvious about, like Star Wars stuff. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Don't even try to remake that. Leave it alone. Especially in seeing what the quality of the movies are now. Yeah, don't even touch it. Deadpool. Same reason I kind of have for Blade. Like, one, rated R. I don't see Disney really being able to really come out with something good. You can't really go places that Deadpool would normally go. Now, I can see Deadpool being in other movies, but his own movie, no, just to leave it alone. Leave it alone. Terminator is kind of like along the same lines of Aliens and Predator universe. It's just, yes, it has gone way downhill at this point, but the first two are just so good and so freaking iconic. It's just like, right. Yeah, don't even try to reboot these. Don't even try to reboot these. Like, and I can see like, okay, Terminator 2 kind of being a product of its time, being in the 90s or whatever, but even still, like, just the story, I'm probably one of those minority ones, even though I love Terminator 2, and every time I watch it, it gets me at the end, it gets me right here. I start tearing up. Terminator 1 is actually still my favorite one. I still like the original a lot better.
It felt more, I don't know, like real in a sense, even though it was a robot, because it seemed, I guess, I don't know, like the second one, certainly, like you said, in terms of the boom, everything going on, It just seemed a bit too, because there was so much action, where the first one really wasn't that much action, if you think about it.
Right.
And it seemed more realistic. Again, even though it was about a guy, living skin. And of course, you got the practical effects, which still did that in pretty much all the movies. I don't think they did really any CGs till recently.
Yeah, till the recent ones, yeah.
Because they didn't have, even the 90s. The T-1000 was, liquid metal, so you had that, which actually was pretty good for that time, for technology then.
It still holds up today, so yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think it just felt, I don't know, it just seemed the way it was shot, it was almost like it was, I don't know, it seemed very personal or something. I don't know. It
Yeah,
just, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I mean, it seemed darker in a grittier and edgier in a way, but
Mhm.
more realistic in terms of, I don't know. It seemed like the scenes were tighter shot and maybe it
Mhm.
focused more directly on the people,
Yeah,
maybe more so. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And they
I can't
really
really put my finger on it, but I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, but gosh, I'm just trying to think of the
there,
right way to say it.
there was
I'm sure
a
everybody understands. I get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like there was in the first Terminator, there was just this there was this sense of dread. You know, you just have like you have an indestructible robot that's trying from the future that's trying to kill you. You know, like the bullets aren't going to stop it, and like Kyle Reese was
Mhm,
saying, can't be compromised with. You can't
mhm,
talk to it. You can't reason with it or whatever. It has one purpose, and that's
mhm.
to and that's to kill you. And that's like, man, it's just like, and then it goes through, bust through the police station, and you think like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, these guys could have something for him, but it's like, nope, he's sitting there eating the bullets. The bullets don't
Right.
affect him, so it's like, all right, well, what do you do? What do you do? And I do like the way it tied up at the end because as much as I do like Terminator 2, it really had to retcon Terminator 1 in order to exist because
Right.
Terminator 1 was like it kind of wrapped itself up in this nice little bow, and it had this thing where I was like, all right, your son's going to be the saver of the universe. It's like, not even married or anything, but she winds up getting pregnant from Kyle Reese, and you see the
Right.
whole turn of events, you see the whole circle of events happen. You're like,
Yes,
oh,
sir. Run.
exactly. You're just like, oh, it's the circular timeline basically is
Right.
what we're talking about. It's like it's just like, all right, well, if he's not sent back, this doesn't happen. If the Terminator's not sent back, they don't get this access to the technology or whatever to create Skynet. And then you're just like, oh, everything kind of it just
Right.
they tied it up really well.
Yeah, it was clever.
Hmm.
And of course, for it to be kind of like essentially very much kind of nobody actors at the time,
Hmm.
sort of. I mean, Arnold was certainly, kind of getting on the scene after that was after Conan
Hmm.
Barbarian. But you had Lance Hendrickson and you had Paul Winfield, two just really, really great actors right
Hmm.
there as the cops, as the
Hmm.
like the lieutenant and I guess the chief or the captain of the
Hmm.
precinct. Um, but yeah, just two really great kind of. It's kind of like minor roles, but they kind of lend a lot to it.
Hmm.
Um, just in terms of the presence, I think. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and taking it as normal people would, just like
Mhm.
who in their right mind would believe a robot from the future was trying to kill you? Who in their
Right.
right
And
mind would do, you know?
right. And of course, Sarah Connor being the every man, every woman character
Hmm.
that we all kind of, kind of like is thrust into that fish out of water sort of thing. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing
Yes.
and this can't be real, but it is.
Hmm.
So it's like, what?
Exactly.
So yeah, you can imagine yourself kind of being that same scenario going like, I don't know how to deal with this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like,
And like I said, we've seen with all the subsequent sequels that are coming out now. It's just like we have these references, and we do
mhm,
all this. Hey, remember this? And it's just like,
yeah,
yeah, but that's from a better movie. Can you be your
right.
own movie? Which is what they would just do in a
Right.
remake. It's just like you see what
Exactly.
they're
It's
doing with
like,
the
I
sequels. Is
do
like
remember that. Let me go watch that right now. Like, you're right.
exactly,
That's a good
exactly.
point.
Exactly. So those are my honorable mentions. Here's one I know that everyone is definitely going to disagree with me about, even though it's kind of had a sort of quasi reboot, and that would be X-Men. And I know I'm kind of like cheating a little bit again, talking about several movies, but I am really talking about the first one. Um, just at this point, I know a lot of people want this to be in the MCU. They're just like, oh, we want the X Men in the MCU. But at this point, I'm just kind of like, it's kind of too late, isn't it? I'm like, like the characters that you would want the X Men to interact with are not even around anymore. So it's just like you're not gonna have Cap. You're not gonna have like people will probably want X Men versus the Avengers, but it's like, well, you're not gonna have the Avengers that were actually in that fight to begin with. You're going to have Captain Marvel. So you're going to have Spider-Man around, maybe. Who knows? But,
Right, the
but you're going to
winds have
have,
changed.
yeah.
Yeah, the changes. That's right.
But you're going to have a lot of like not not necessarily mainstream characters in this fight with mainstream X-Men, where it's just kind of like, yeah, it's not, you're not going to get those same interactions. You're not going to get, you know, Tony Stark cracking wise with Wolverine or anything like that. And I'm like, the X-Men movies have had, yes, they've had some bad movies. I'm not even going to sit here and argue about that. They've had some bad movies, but at the same time, Aliens versus Predator and Universe, bad movies they've had in there. Terminator's had some bad movies in there, but I think they've had some really good ones as well. Some really good ones, some really solid ones. They've got some pretty iconic characters both in the new cast and the old cast. I'll probably say the old cast maybe a little bit more so, but I mean, you've had some pretty iconic characters, some great performances. At this point, it's kind of like, all right, you're going to redo X-Men. It's kind of like, why? Why at this point? You know, that like, there's I mean, you could probably tell a couple of good Joss Whedon stories. He's got some really good stories out there, but it's like, you'd just be rebooting them in their own universe, dealing with this stuff anyway. So it's like, why are you really, what's the purpose? I don't really see a purpose for rebooting the X-Men in the MCU, you know, at all. You know, I think the MCU is good and solid on its own. They can keep doing their own thing, maybe have a cameo here or there, a team up here or there, or something like that. But just overall, just rebooting the X-Men, creating a whole new series of movies, is kind of like, why? What for? What for? It's like, I think they've had their run. This is the same thing I would say about Terminator. It's the same thing I would say about the Alien versus Predator universe. They have had their run. Blade, it's had its run. Let it go. Just let it go. You've got brand new stuff, new characters that you can deal with and everything like that. Just focus on them. Focus on them, and then
that's the
go from
thing,
there.
though. It's like, you know, we've talked about this many times, and we'll continue talking about this many times more after this, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fresh new stories are better.
Yes.
It's more of a challenge and more of a risk, but at the same time, you still have a challenge and a risk of taking a storyline that, you know, like I've seen from back in, you know, the day, and then like today, 30 years later, 40 years later, whatever, you're gonna remake it. And I'm like, yeah, I saw the original movie, I thought it was pretty darn good. And I was like, well, why remake it? Just because you want to change some things? Well, then why not just make a new movie if that's the case? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, because everyone's always going to compare it to the original in some way, shape, or form. Some are going to like it more, some people aren't going to like it as much. I mean, you had Star Wars that was created in original. You had the Predator movie, which was created in original. The Terminator was created in original, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So, and we remember those. Yeah, I mean, we still remember good remakes too.
Right.
But we also remember the bad remakes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's the problem. Is like, because then you just literally beat the dead horse to death after, and then raise him from the dead and breed him again until he's dead again.
Exactly.
And it's like, why?
Just like, let me die.
I mean, well, but honestly, we'd need a pandemic to keep people out of movie theaters. You just keep doing that, people aren't going to go.
Exactly.
I mean, we're just going to stay at home and watch the movies on, you know, Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever, you know, free TV platform like Roku stuff and Pluto TV and whatever, Peacock or whatever. Yeah, they're going to have commercials in it, but so what? I mean, you know.
Rather watch this than what they're coming out with now. Yeah. That's what people are going to be like,
I started going back and watching some of the old like Barney Miller episodes, I think, just because it's cleverly written and it's got interesting characters and it's got a multi, you know, interaction of characters of different races and different backgrounds and different ages and different experiences. And it's funny, but it's also poignant, and it talks about actual today issues still, and this was written back in the 70s. It's like, this is how you do it right, people.
Exactly.
And I just don't get it. But that's, you know, that's the era of, you know, the Norman Lears and all those Larry Gelbarts and stuff who wrote those really, really amazing shows, like, you know, All in the Family and MASH and all these other things, and Jeffersons and Good Times. I mean, these are just great shows that had great family interactions, and that had put people in scenarios that really could still be today. I mean, whether it's in the 70s or today, it's still kind of still the same as, you know,
the timeless value.
Yeah, exactly. People
timeless
still want to work hard, want to get better. People are still poor and want to get better. They want the kids to do better than they did, and so on and so forth. And so, you know, the comedy still cuts and it's still funny. But yeah, that's, you know.
Yeah, and
Thanks for watching until the end, fellow Nerd Posse. If you stuck around this long, it means that we own your soul, and the only way to get it back is to click that subscribe button, leave a like or dislike, and comment down below. If you want to watch the full video, check us out on McBlamentEntertainment.com, or for the audio version, just simply look us up on your favorite podcasting app. Follow us on social media, the links are in the description down below, and if you feel ever so kind, you can support us on Patreon or Subscribestar for as little as $1 a month and gain access to our Discord server where we talk about all sorts of nerdy stuff. Thanks again for watching, and depending on what time of day you're watching, have a good morning, have a good day, and have a good night, and we will see you in the next video.